Welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean right here. I don't know, Rock Rage Radio Network, Eastlink TV. I don't know. We're going to do one or the other. We're all good. I am here with Miss Annemarie Jo, who I've met through my friend Gina, who lives in Los Angeles, California. Hey, thanks for being on here. How are you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Sean. I'm doing well today.
So you're in the Michigan area, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, Metro Detroit. I'm in Rochester.
Rochester, right on. So I've been there a bunch of times. I used to live in Toronto when I
Okay.
was playing. We snuck across the border and played a few times in Detroit. So it's a great town.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you and what you've been up to.
Yeah, I'm a full-time musician, singer, so I've been singing practically my whole life from as probably about the time that I can start talking, I was singing, but I've been gigging since around the age of 14. I'm in a full band. St. John Smith is the name, and I also do solo performances. So I do about 140 shows a year right now.
Are you
Stay.
are you born and bred Michigan?
I'm sorry?
Are you born and bred Michigan?
Yep, I am.
So it's interesting. I just picked up on something. You could fit into Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I am, because when we talk full-time gigging musician, and
Yes.
we cut off our G's, and you were doing that. I found that
Yep.
Michigan has that kind of dialect, and Buffalo, New York, kind of has dialect
Yeah.
of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, which is kind of interesting. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So you're full-time. So what does that look like for you?
Most Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, I'm somewhere, bar, restaurant, wedding, singing. Like I said, either solo or with band. And then I'm trying to pursue a solo career. So I just put out a new single, Cherry on Top. I got some new stuff working in the studio, almost ready to share. But doing a little bit more behind the scenes work right now as my summer's slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have to do that. I mean, I'm a musician. I play live. I do tracks. I promote people, and people don't realize how much work it is. It looks fun, and it is fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of work.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely a lot of work. I'm getting over a sickness right now that because of my singing, it's lasted like 2 weeks and
Uh,
man, I'm tired, but there's no break for us musicians.
there's not. We don't have a pension plan. We don't have unemployment. We don't have anything like that. Sick days, and people don't
No
understand.
PTO, nothing.
But you got it. You got it. And and the funny thing is, so one of the things I guess that's happened up here the last few years. I'd be interested to find out if it's happening in your area is, and we'll call it post-COVID, is
Yeah.
that because people had time to learn how to play an instrument or sing, all of a sudden everybody's a musician and everybody can play and everybody, and are you finding that where you are?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like you said, more people are out and singing because they had 2 years, a year at home to pick up the art. But I've been finding it harder to find places to,
Yeah.
a lot of places that I used to sing for 4 or 5 years no longer do music, or it's only once a month when that used to be, Friday, Saturdays every week they would have live music. So kind of a mix of that is definitely been a struggle, but we're making it.
Yeah, one of the things that I find that's interesting is about a month and a half, 2 months ago, there's a guy I know who he owns a venue, and he goes, "Well, I had this guy, but this guy's just as good, and I'm paying him less money." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, right on." I said, "So you do know that guy that you're paying less money will cancel you on Super Bowl Sunday to go to a Super Bowl party where the other guy wouldn't?" And he
Exactly.
looked at, I said, "That's a professional versus a hobbyist, and people need to understand that, right?"
Yeah, definitely.
I'll fight that battle all day long, and I do anyway. So,
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about your music. You write on your own? Do you have collaborators? How do you approach it?
Yeah, so far my writing process has just been solo. I've written all my original music myself. I record here in Michigan at Pearl Sound Studios. My producer Chuck. Absolutely love the recording process. I think it's even more fun than the writing process, just to be
Yeah.
able to see the music come to life and all the instruments that I don't play, and be able to really give some life to these songs. So
I'd like to get your weigh in on this because you said something there. You love the process. Um, if you A lot of people don't get to do both. So if you're an artist that is signed, you do get to record, and you do get to play live. But sometimes it's a one or another, right? I have the pleasure of doing both, and I like being in the studio when I'm in the studio, but I love being live when I'm live. Do you have a preference, and how do you approach that?
oh, that's tough. I don't know. It might be tied for me because being in the studio, like I said, you're creating, you're in a different mindset. Whereas when you're out, you're not just an entertainer, but you get to you get to bring life to the people rather than to your music. So
Right.
entertaining those and making those happy with your, with your music that you're playing, even if there are cover songs. But in a studio, you're kind of planning for that next step of, okay, live, how are people going to feel about this? Are people going to understand it? Is it okay if they don't understand it? And all, all the questions that run through your head as you're writing and recording new stuff.
To describe it to, I guess, a non-musician would be one's instant gratification and one is kind of
Yes,
delayed
that's a
gratification,
good way
right?
to put it. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, and when I say instant, it can be instant because I've done shows where a video is posted online before you even finish the song. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing, you said some covers and some originals. So in terms of your covers and that angle, what would you be doing there?
Yeah, I'm an old soul, so I got a lot of classic rock under my belt. Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac is favorite, one of my favorite singers and bands. Do a lot of that. Billy Joel is another favorite. I try to do like, a good mix, a little bit of country, a little bit of pop, but I definitely do more classic rock and like soulful pop in my stuff. I grew up listening to a lot of that, older stuff, Fleetwood Mac, Eagles, America, which is one of my favorite bands. But then on my
Nice.
mom's side, I grew up listening to Diana Ross and Whitney Houston and, Elvis and some more pop, obviously King of Rock and Roll, but, a good
Yeah.
mix of music. And I think that's kind of what shaped me because I had a hard time for years to pinpoint what kind of musician I was, what kind of genre I was, and I finally just threw that out of the bag and said, I'm just gonna make music, and you guys can figure out what you call it. So
Think what you're saying there though, because in this day and age, a lot of times, like I'll get a track and it's like this is totally country, or I'll get another one, and this is pop or whatever. With the artists that I work with, her and her writer are pretty much laser focused on what they're doing. I mean, there's deviations here and there. Um, but what artists don't typically get to do that anymore. They just don't get to write and see what comes out.
mhm.
Is that what you're doing? You're just writing your songs, and what you get is what you get.
Yeah, and because of the influences, in my life and the music I grew up with, it's still pretty straight on, but like there are influences of, soul and pop and rock and roll and all these things. So there's definitely a little bit of a mix rather than just a pinpointed genre, which I think you're seeing nowadays too. Some artists like Chapel Roan is like this pop but hip hop but soulful. Like she's, there's some mixes in music that I think it's okay to kind of touch on different genres and make music how you feel. So
Well, and I mean things change, and the line that drives me nuts is somebody says I'm old school. Well, that just means you know what, you got your mind closed.
yeah.
I'm old school too. I like what I like, but I can appreciate new stuff sometimes. And the thing that I absolutely love about music is what you like and what I like.
Hmm.
Neither of us are wrong because those are our opinions,
That's
right?
right.
I would love to get your as a female artist, and it'll be a two-part question. But the first one is your kind of take on, when somebody says this is the best songwriter or this is the best singer. I'd love to get your slant on that because I'm going with somewhere with that.
Oh man, I when someone tells me that, it gets me excited to be able to hear, and want to listen to this. But like you said, it's opinions, right? If you just think someone's the best, well, I could think that they're not even good, you know. But to hearing someone to be the best, it does make me excited to. All right, who is this person? Where did they come from? What's their music about? Did they write their music? Are they just singing it? Um, Kind of gets me excited to learn who they are. But saying it's the best, there's so much comparison and so much differences in genres and time frame and eras and stuff like that. So it's hard to say the best.
And I think we're influenced sometimes by media and social media, and and there's this connotation amongst people that there's somebody sitting up in the clouds and there are five people that make the decisions for everybody and we're the ones that say they're the best, and it's not. That's
Yeah.
really what because I mean what metrics do you use? Is it sales? Well, just because something sells doesn't mean it's the best.
Hmm.
Is it genre? Well, that there's really, to me, it's one of those it's an infinite sort of question because you nailed it. You love Stevie Nicks. I like Stevie Nicks. Um, that doesn't mean I'm more right or wrong than you. So that's a great answer. The second thing I want to ask you, as it pertains to, because I work with a female artist as well, and she's got a great line, and she says this quite a bit, where girls or women have to work sometimes just a little bit harder. And it's not a chip on the shoulders. They don't have the opportunity to take a shift off or take a night off in the way a guy would. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I really experienced that
No?
or kind of um understand that too much. I'm in a band, full band, and I'm the only female in my band. There's four
Yep.
guys with me. Um, and I feel like we're all working hard and we all understand the art of gigging and getting home late and hey, you gotta sacrifice time and weekends and time with family. You know, when everyone's out having the best time because it's a holiday, well, that's when you're working. And so we're all working equally hard. I mean, a woman in the music industry trying to maybe in a sense of like being powerful and getting your voice heard maybe is a little bit more difficult, but I think if you got the right audience and the mic, you got the floor.
Yeah, and you hit something else there that I think is really important. 'Cause, you're setting some visuals for people. Musicians don't back to the time off thing. You're right. I mean, and I would put, if you're playing a venue, bar staff, they have their Friday and Saturday nights, they're working so that
Yep,
people can enjoy it. Musicians are working, and people, again, it looks fun and it's fun. Don't get me wrong,
that is, yeah.
but I wouldn't do it for free all the time. I don't think you would either, right? There's certain banks that like to have money and that you
Yeah.
you owe them. So it's just expand upon that just a little bit more if you would, because I don't think people understand. I'll put it in these terms. You may be or your band's asked to do a wedding. You give them a price, and they say, "Well, that's expensive." Well, it took an awful lot of time to learn the songs. It took an awful lot of time to learn my instrument. It took an awful lot of time to learn my voice. It took an awful lot, like they don't. It's all they do is they equate that hour or 2 hour time frame. They don't equate all the other things. But if you go to a winery, you're paying for the college education and you're paying, you know what I mean? So maybe expand on that, because I say it to my audience and it comes off like a broken record.
Right. Yeah, I think like you said, you're paying for more than just the 2, 3 hour time span that we're showing up and playing your event. I mean, same with like doctors, right? You're paying for them because only they can do it. Not everybody can do what a doctor does. Not everyone can do what a musician does because they don't have the art. They didn't, grow up singing or playing instruments and they didn't put the time and effort and all the equipment that we have to bring
Yeah.
and the effort, like weddings, especially when people see our big ticket price for a wedding, we're getting there 5 hours early to set up and not be seen by your guests beforehand. You know, we're shutting up and playing the MC role for your wedding ceremony, making sure that everything is flawless, and then we're ready 3 hours later after sitting and waiting during dinner and speeches and dances for us to get up there and put on a show. So I think you're paying for time and effort as a whole rather than just, that 3 hour time period of playing.
Well said. What else we're doing at weddings that people forget? You mentioned the emceeing and all that.
Mhm.
Um, we are treating it like it's not just another gig, because some people, you do a lot of weddings. To a musician, it could just be another gig, but for these people, this is a
That's part of their
right.
life. Absolutely.
And the other thing that we don't do is hand out business cards to the wedding planner at the wedding, because you don't want to
Right. Yeah.
jinx that one, right?
Those are mine.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I did a wedding for somebody a number of years ago, and about 13 months later, I ran into him in the grocery store. He was with another girl, and I said, "How's it going?" He goes, "Well, obviously, I'm not married anymore." Okay, well, you're not getting
Yeah.
your money back.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, so I mean, this is a good interview because um, I think people in my part of the world think that they're special, and they think that this type of thing doesn't happen to other people. And it's, I'm not going to say it's good to hear, but it's important to hear that kind of, did they have that saying in the U.S. from COVID? We're all in it together.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, which to me is, yeah, we're all in it together now. It's every man and woman for himself. It's just very bizarre, right? So talk to me about your original material. If and I seem to be saying this a lot in interviews, but I don't like to play the comparable game. And we all know men hate to be compared, and they don't mind competing, but they don't like being compared. But if I was to say, okay, give me a comparable to your music so that my listeners or viewers would go, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. I would say artist or genre-wise, like I said, like pop soul. But if you had to think of another artist, maybe similar, I would say like Amber Mark or her. It's got that like new soulful pop with like that mainstream kind of feel to it, but then a little bit more soulful. Like I get Stevie Nicks a lot just because I got a little bit of rasp in my voice, a little bit of
Yep.
power behind it. So if you can kind of mix those two things of like Amber Mark and Stevie Nicks, I feel like you'd find me somewhere in there.
Um, I'd be interested too. I mean, you're in one of those music cities that everybody like. There's Nashville, right, for country. There's Detroit for Motown. New York City for punk. Is there still some of that Motown era hanging around
Yeah,
Detroit?
there definitely is, but I find in kind of the more casual music scene where like
Right,
bars and the more popular places, because Detroit, a lot of our music comes as a second to like sporting events. So if there's a
right.
huge sporting event, you're gonna find bands, DJs all over bars downtown. But I feel like Motown is getting a little bit lost, especially with DJs coming in and
Mm.
stealing our live music
Yeah.
spots. It's easier, cheaper to get a DJ. It's obviously not as giving, not as personal, in my opinion, as a live musician. But hey, I'm biased.
Yeah, yeah, no, and there's no shame in that. I mean, I have a number of friends that are DJs and they do a great job.
Ugh.
Um, but it's one of those things where I don't think like up here in Halifax, I'm a rock guy. I've always been a rock. I mean, I went into the music store to buy a cowbell, and the manager is the one guy in the city who should have a cowbell, and he doesn't. Well, but we're kind of known as a Celtic folky kind of
Yeah.
scene, and so for somebody like me. I have friends come up from the United States, and I'm like, oh, if you like rock stuff, man, you could be in the wrong town. Um, DJs serve a purpose,
Mhm.
as do live music, right? So I don't necessarily think we still have to. I mean, I can remember back in the '90s, man, where it was, you see a DJ and you want to punch him in the face. Let him be everywhere around, right? It's not like
Right.
that anymore, thankfully. So it seems like real music's making a comeback, I guess, in a way. Is it the same way down
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
I think maybe out of COVID is why we saw like kind of like a surplus of DJs. It was just
yeah.
easier. It's less people to come in, takes up less space, and one less person to possibly get your restaurant sick. But I think that live music is making a comeback here, especially like I said with sporting events. You're seeing live bands on the street on the bars. Tin Roof Detroit, I play there all the time, and now they're getting back to two or three bands at a time, which is awesome because it's brings in a good crowd.
Um, this is more or less for a knowledge thing for my audience that lives here, but how, and I won't ask you how much, but in terms of compensation and the way bands are comped in your area, um, is it guarantees? Is it pay to play? Is it ticketed events? Is it cover? And how do they do it down there?
Yeah, unless you're in like a strict music venue, like we have the Magic Stick, places in Detroit, then it's ticket sales. But for me, it's just straight pay. It's definitely not pay to play. There's no places like that, um,
Yep.
and really in Detroit. But get your deposit and you show up, you play your gig, you get your check, and you're out of there. It's pretty standard.
Right on. Because the lines are a little blurred, like when everything opened back up again, and I don't know how they did it down there, but up here they would say, okay, well, you can, if you're a venue of 300, you can have 25 people seated,
Yeah.
and then 50, and then, oh, you know what, we made a mistake, it's back to 10. It was just this, so the bars had a really hard time figuring out that type of thing, and I think, unfortunately, now with some musicians, and I got to watch my, well, I don't care. You know what? I'm going to say it. Some musicians themselves, and then some musicians undervalue themselves. And I think that that's where the whole COVID
Mhm.
thing has really messed things up. Well, anyway, you see the same thing?
Yep. Sorry, you were cutting out for a second. You said some musicians.
Overvalue themselves, and some musicians undervalue themselves, and I think that's a COVID hangover. Do you see that
Yeah,
similar thing?
I think you kind of said in the beginning of the interview too, where you said, some people, well, I can hire this guy because he's cheaper. Or I can hire this guy because he's a professional. So I feel like sometimes when there's few musicians for a venue or for an area, you kind of find that a little bit where they feel like they're overvalued and
Yeah.
maybe asking a bit too much. But I think Detroit does a good job. We all appreciate our artists and live music around here. There's a good mix of musicians that I run into, at different gigs and festivals that I play at. And it seems that we're all doing pretty good.
So would you say that your scene is and I'm asking these questions because you're exposing a lot of really cool information here. So hopefully you don't mind me asking these, but because unfortunately you live in a certain part of the world and you think your part of the world has everything figured out, and then you come to find out that maybe not so much, right?
Yeah.
But is your scene, is it cohesive, is it supportive, is there a camaraderie there, like is that thing like a healthy sort of thing in Detroit?
Yeah, definitely. I think I haven't had too much of like collaborative work with musicians, but every musician that I meet, we're excited to meet each other, excited to see what each other, what we're up to, what we're doing, where we're playing, exchanging information, possibly getting together. I think we're really supportive of each other in the music scene. I mean, we're all just trying to make a living, and some of us are okay with just gigging and having that be kind of like a side job. Then you find people like me who are using gigging as a way to an avenue to become a solo artist and possibly
Yeah.
do more than that. So yeah.
And I mean, it's funny. I had a lawyer friend, so when I was in high school, he would always make fun of myself and my bandmates because we dressed like Motley Crue or Rat or
Yeah.
something like that. And now he's been retired for a couple of years and he's learned to play guitar and now he's doing gigs. And I'm like, really? Oh, it
Yeah.
was, we were a bunch of clowns back in high school, but it's cool now. And that thing I don't think I'll ever be fine with. That's just a personal thing for me.
Yeah.
And everything has its place, but I would really like to see things get to a point where um like everybody doesn't get to play in the NHL. Everybody doesn't get to play for the Detroit Lions, right? But they have
Yep.
pickup leagues and those types of. I'd love to see that kind of system
Yeah.
happen.
There's a place for everybody, no matter
Right,
your dedication to gigging or doing it full time, part time. But like you said,
right.
we're seeing a little bit of a surplus of musicians after COVID, which isn't a bad thing. It's maybe a little bit more of a struggle now that I have maybe one or two less places to play at as I'm competing with other local artists. But hey, there's live music out there, and that's all we can be grateful for.
Nicely said. So you're a friend of my friend Gina. So I've known Gina now for almost a year.
Okay.
Um, you know, a super nice person. She had an artist that I was kind of helping her do a little bit of work with. How did you meet Gina and your relationship, and what a PR person brings to the table for somebody that's an independent, if anybody was kind of wondering.
Yeah. So I met Gina through my producer Chuck. So where I record at Pearl Sound Studios. Chuck Alkazian introduced me to her and said, "Hey, I think you're kind of getting ready to take a next step," and introduced me to Gina, who I haven't met in person because she is in LA, but I'm in
Yeah.
Michigan. But we meet virtually every week, and absolutely love her. She's really opened my eyes to how much behind the scenes work there is for a small independent artist, and she takes a lot of that off my plate, obviously, as well. Setting up interviews like this where I get to meet people, people get to hear a little bit more about me. She's helped me put out my press release, get in contact with my a new video producer for something coming up, and just finished on my lyric video for Cherry on Top. So she's kind of helped me learn, all right, what are the steps ABC that we can be doing while you're gigging 5 days a week and staying busy behind the scenes. So
So this is the part in the show where my audience collectively rolls their eyes because they're going to go, "Oh my God, he's going to talk about this again." But you just brought up something in that I didn't even ask. There's that you've heard of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or the 6 degrees of separation, right? Have you heard the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
no, I haven't.
It's a fun game that these two guys created where they can take an actor and within no more than 6 steps they can figure out that Kevin Bacon was connected to an actor. It's the most
Okay.
amazing thing. So that's a
Yeah.
networking thing. So hey, you've never met Gina, but your producer introduced you to Gina, and you and I are meeting for the first time through Gina. I met
Mhm.
Gina through a friend of mine. Well, she was Pete Lauren is she was repping Pete, who met Gina through Chris Katero. So networking, does that play a big part for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in finding new places to play at, and trying to find like openers, me to open up for some bands as I'm trying to pursue independent role in my career. But networking is huge, especially for through Chuck, my producer, because I would never know who to find, and more importantly, who to trust. Like
Yeah.
to find a PR person that I trust and that I know is doing their work behind the scenes. So coming from Chuck, who is a friend and someone I've worked with now for 4, 5, 6 years, 2017. Wow, it's been a long
Mhm.
time. I think is really important. We're comfortable with each other. We're friends more than anything. So when he introduced me to Gina, I was like, yeah, let's do this. I had no questions and knew that it was a reputable person.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I mean, no question. She hit me up 2 weeks ago, I think,
Mm.
and would you interview my client? And it's like I have an open door policy with Gina. It's like because, and I hate to say use the term she's proven, but she's a pro, plain and simple. So I mean, anybody that she sends my way, and they always wind up being like you. They're professional, they're enthusiastic, they've got a lot of knowledge. Um, one of the things that I really try to do, it sounds cheesy, and some people say it sounds cheesy, but I really try to push female performers because I work with a female performer, but I just find for whatever reason there's sometimes less opportunity for them. And
Yeah.
if I can help out, that's you know, and plus I'm not one of those guys that you hear the horror stories about where I'm sending you a text afterwards. Like I just don't do that.
Well, we'll
So
see. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so last question, where do my viewers slash, because I'll probably this will probably wind up in my TV show at some point. Where do my viewers slash listeners find out more about you?
Yeah. So I have a website, AnnemarieJoMusic.com, and that can take you to all my links for social medias, but Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it's all around the same name. So AnnemarieJo_music is my Instagram. Facebook is Annemarie Jo's Music, and then similar to Spotify and Apple Music, and I'm on all platforms. You can listen to my original stuff, and I'll be putting out some more stuff there. So just type up Annemarie Jo, and you'll find me.
I want to thank you for doing this. This was a lot of fun, and I don't normally do these on a Friday night, so that's
Yeah.
that was different. Change is good sometimes, and best of luck. I'd like to stay in touch with you and see how things go, and
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Sean.
well, and I'm in Toronto every now and again, and I'm threatened. I haven't been to Detroit since God, 1999. It's been a long time, but
That's the
uh,
year I was born.
well, thanks for that. I was 4. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, thank you so much for doing this, and let's stay in touch. And we're back after this, kids.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.